Hey Don, how are you?
Hey Neer, how are you? Good to
Yeah,
see you.
very good. Very good to have you on the FinTech Week. I'm following you a lot on the social media and Holland FinTech and all the events and the platform that you have. Before we talk about Holland FinTech and everything that you are doing, maybe so the audience will get to know you as a person and all the things you've done. Maybe you can give us like the introduction to who you are.
Sure. Thanks for that. And really nice to have this chat and be able to explain a bit more. Um, so I'm a civil engineer by training, very Dutch profession. Building dikes to keep the land dry, those kind of activities. But I always thought that the economic perspective was also very interesting. And so through banking and the startup scene, I ended up ending in fintech and loving really the potential that's there. On one hand, fintech I think is not really tangible, but I think it's as a concept, it's a really important change agent for the financial industry, and I really just like to use that for the better. So I always try to look at financial inclusion and digital inclusion, and see that that's a really interesting playing field of how you can actually use technology to give people access to more solutions, and from that perspective, more economic power, especially if you talk about financial services. And I think there's a lot to be done because even though the Western world where we're in the midst of in the Netherlands, it seems all pretty okay. There's still quite some people that don't know how to deal well with money, are not very understanding of what happens to their data if they do things online, and especially not always have access to the right tools at the right moment. And I think so. I'm really driven to try and make an impact there.
Amazing.
And a couple of years ago, 6 years ago, I think about now, I thought that concept of fintech would be interesting to actually motivate the market to move forward. And so I founded Holland FinTech as a platform to bring everyone together and figure out, if we have everyone in one place, we'll figure out what will happen. We can learn from each other. And in any case, there's a large potential to collaborate. And so far, that's worked pretty well, with now around 500 companies in the network of Holland FinTech, quite strong reach across Europe, as well as links across the Atlantic and into Asia. We're just really keen to connect everyone and figure out, what can we learn from each other. In some cases, America is ahead, so we can learn there. In some cases, they're behind. They could learn from Europe. Same with Israel, which of course is also always very much in the picture if you talk about technology. Okay, and then trying to exchange, and look at each other's strengths and weaknesses to compensate it and connect everything for business.
Amazing. Yeah, you mentioned all these other fintech nations, and I was like reading a manifesto by the Dutch finance minister who said that the Netherlands should focus maybe on fintech bridges, and he mentioned Israel and Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting.
Yeah, I think for sure. So I think they created a fintech action plan indeed last summer to really sort of embrace the ambition around fintech. And one of the important things is I think an important realization is that they don't know yet, what's best in class and how to actually nurture this ecosystem better. So I'm really happy that they're willing to learn and therefore sort of make attachments to Singapore, where you can see that they're really advanced with how the regulator plays along in the ecosystem. And if you look into Israel, I think, for example, everyone is really amazed by how the tech ecosystem gets boosted in general and how entrepreneurial everyone is. And hopefully everyone will be able to take some learnings there and mix it together and further enhance the Dutch ecosystem.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. Where are you looking when you're looking for inspiration? What other things you see in the global perspective?
I'm always keen on what brings people together. So in the end, I mean, we talk about fintech, if you talk about Holland FinTech and most of the things that we do. But in the end, I'm always curious what motivates people to do something together. So where are there barriers for collaboration, and where are there basically ways that we could learn to make it better? Especially, of course, if you look into fintech or maybe general in the startup world, startups and larger corporations don't naturally go together. Even though there's a really strong appeal, right? Because either you're looking for innovation and then you look at these startups and it looks amazing, so you want to do something with that, or you're a small startup and you're lacking resources or you're lacking distribution, and you look at these big corporates and you think like, they've got it, we need to be working with them. But then again, still that interest is still not enough to make a lot of successful collaborations. A lot of them still fail because culturally they're so far apart, right? And I believe, for example, that especially risk appetite plays an important role there. So large corporations are aimed at preserving what they have because that's the core of their business, while small companies, and especially startups, are focused on acquiring things and are willing to take risk to do that because they don't have a lot to protect.
Yeah.
And that, I think, gives a completely different nature. And so how that shapes human behavior, processes, and therefore the chances to success, yeah, that's, I think, what I think is just really appealing. And also for, especially in the financial industry, how regulations play into that, because they could also make and break these kind of relationships.
Yeah. I'm seeing we have unicorns here, even in the summit. We have a Payoneer and we have a company like Rewire and others.
Yep.
Decided to make their hub in the Netherlands for the whole Europe. Why is that? Why is the Netherlands so appealing to these fintechs?
Well, I think the Dutch market has really benefited from the rise of e-commerce since the early start of the internet, and the payments industry grew just as fast with it. So I think because we had, let's say, I think we've got a quite good entrepreneurial nature as well as technical staffing, technical talent available. And so I think when people were trying to solve the puzzle to do e-commerce in the early days, I think that there were quite some successes. And we've seen actually that from the early days where there were some successful payment companies, we've seen it's a bit like what people talk about with the PayPal mafia as well in Silicon Valley. We actually have a similar ground, be it at a definitely a bit more modest size, if you talk about the amount of capital behind it. But also, for example, the people that founded Adyen, now one of the most successful payment companies in the Dutch market, had done this before and had been part of this also early payment adventures, basically in the early days of the internet. And I think that's what you saw is that basically because of that early start, there's a really vivid ecosystem around payments. And as well, the regulators are therefore also pretty well understanding of this whole market. So if you want to talk to a regulator about setting up a payments company, I think you're all actually finding a really good spot here in the Dutch market. That's
really good to know. And by the way, Brexit, did it play the role or?
Yeah, of course, right. So I think the UK remains a very attractive place for fintech companies to be based. But the fact that there are, well, it's still really unclear what's going to happen, but that they're likely going to be cut off from the European market has definitely created quite some inflow of companies into the Dutch market as well. Yeah, it's on one hand it's really sad because I believe that we should try and stay friends with the UK as far as possible. But at the same time, of course, it creates new opportunities and new concentrations of knowledge also here in the region.
Yes. I'm seeing a lot of neobanks. We had Bank on
Yep.
the last summit, and also there are, I think, other services. I mean, the Tiki app, right, by ABN, if I remember.
Yep.
I mean, it's a payment, right, peer-to-peer app. If I remember.
Yeah, it's a payment request app. So it makes it really easy to do to send payment requests. And I think that has been attempted tons of times before, but I think they really got the psychology right to put the effort with the person to receive the money, which I think really kicked off. Where very often actually it was the other way around, so I think that they've got a really nice product there as well, and that's I think also nice to see that. 5 years ago, we were always talking about startups doing innovations and the incumbents lagging behind. But I think that they're actually the incumbent players are really pushing for it. And there's becoming quite a nice competitive playing field for them to really try to be the best with their banking app, with spin outs like Tiki, for example, to make a mark on innovation and really get much closer to what their customers need. And so from that perspective, that might not always be easy for fintech startups, because the competition from that perspective only becomes harder. But at the same time, I think customers can only win, right? Let's just everyone give it the best try and come up with the best solution.
Yes, this was actually the topic of the next question. You basically answer it. I mean, I'm talking about traditional banks that are innovating, and I'm seeing it's not just Tiki, right? The other banks were maybe
No, exactly.
Rabobank also.
Exactly. And I think you see it actually across all sizes, right? So you see the bigger banks making large budgets available through venture funds. So they do investing, they do venture building, and they do spin outs from their own product factory, basically, where you have indeed factories from Rabobank, or you have New10 from ABN AMRO as well, or well, Payvision was an acquisition by ING, for example.
ING has Yolt, but that's
Yolt, for example, right? So indeed, so you got a lot of these products that are being created by banks and being pushed out as a sort of independent venture. And I think that's really interesting to see as well, that they're exploring all these different business models. But I also see, for example, smaller banks like, for example, NIBC being really a good partner for all kinds of fintech companies to try and, on a middle market scale, make sure customers actually get access to the best solutions. And so even if you don't have the large budgets, you can still be smart and have fintech as part of your portfolio.
Yes. By the way, at the beginning, I wanted to say something about the NFIA that, of course, we are very happy to have them as partners, and they are very active, at least here in Israel. The team is really active in really helping these fintechs and other companies to establish an operation in the Netherlands. I'm seeing them very, very active.
No, I think they're doing a really good job. So it's I think it's funny, wherever you go across the world, you will find people from Dutch embassies and consulates and the NFIA, and they're really business oriented. So I'm because I know that actually differs quite a bit from country to country, but they're really trade minded and always willing to help parties that have a link with the Dutch market or are willing to basically create one. So it's a lot of fun to work with them, and yeah, really helpful people.
Yes. And what is coming up for Holland FinTech? Are you planning, I don't know, events, how the platform is going? I mean, you have so much, you have all the database. You have at least, you said 500, right?
Yeah. No, so that it's a lot, right? So I think we're very keen to further connect across Europe. Like, for example, we're working with the EDFA, which is the European Digital Finance Association, which has been recently set up with different hubs across Europe to further help basically determine new regulations and policies as Europe is setting them up. Really important at the time, because I think there's a really strong dynamic with new regulations coming up, because the challenges currently to the market are really high. Think about anti-money laundering, security issues, big tech entering the market, privacy legislation, which is still really early on and needs to be evolving. So I think if you look at all these topics,
I wanted to, one more topic, maybe open banking, or how
exactly. Yeah. No, exactly. Sort of the whole open data sharing from PSD2 to open banking to open data. You see indeed that the whole thinking about it is evolving at the moment, as very slowly everyone's beginning to get a better understanding of what it means, what could happen, what are the risks, what are the opportunities. And so this is all in flux. And so that means that currently also new rules are being designed at a very high pace, and that requires good impact from the market as well. So that's one thing we're keen on, both on European level as well as on a national level. Besides that, I think everyone's waiting for the COVID lockdowns to disappear, to again be able to cross borders again, meet people, do business, have a bit of fun with each other. I think fintech in general is doing pretty well during these lockdowns, especially there where there were already established relationships. But I think there's much more potential, even if we would get together again and get our mind and creativity back to work.
Yes, amazing. So for companies who are watching us and they want to learn more about the Dutch tech ecosystem and the fintech, in specifically the fintech ecosystem, how can they work with you? How are you reachable? The Holland FinTech crew and team, the platform you mentioned, because a lot of them are watching us right now, and again, Israeli companies who of course can reach the NFIA, and we will put their details over here. and Holland FinTech, right? How can they reach you? What's the best way?
Yeah, no, so definitely, if you're already in touch with the NFIA, then if you're into fintech, we will probably hear from you soon enough, because we collaborate with them quite well. If you're interested in reading more about the Dutch and European fintech landscape, if you go to hollandfintech.com, you'll be able to find more information, and that's also how you can reach out to us, which I think is we're always very happy to guide you through the landscape. Give you some insights about, pros and cons of setting up shop here, because it might for example make a lot of sense for payment companies, but it doesn't mean that it makes sense for all different financial solutions. And I think we're always open to openly discuss what's the best fit, what would be good reasoning to set up shop here, and if you've made a decision, to help you find your way, and especially, of course, get connected to the network and meet potential customers and suppliers.
Amazing. I have one company over here that I know that they're looking for, they want to reach these Dutch banks. We have a solution,
Okay.
a specific solution. Yep. And they will love to get the guidance.
Okay, no, more than happy to talk to them. We're always, I know that also a lot of technology, especially, a lot of companies, also the larger banks, are looking at Israel for state-of-the-art technology. So generally, it should be easy to get to a meeting and be able to talk about what you guys do. We're happy to facilitate.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Don. I know you're very busy and you found time, and I can't wait to collaborate even more with Holland FinTech, and I think there's a lot of opportunity. We are direct, you are direct, Israelis and Dutch, and it helps the business and to move things forward. So thank you again, and stay around the summit. I'm sure people would love to network with you.
Yeah, I will. And thanks a lot. And if people want to reach out to me directly, please use LinkedIn. I'm happy to pick up any request there as well, should you not find your way to my team via the hollandfintech.com website. Amazing. Good luck, Nir. Nice talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.